very much for having me. I like to carry papers around because it makes me feel somehow secure. Actually, the truth is I have so many notes. I'm quite obsessive, so I carry things around so I can always refer back to them. But I just went into the bathroom and I looked at myself and I can't even keep my tie straight. So we'll see how this goes. But I do want to say thank you very much. Thank you for bringing me in tonight. I appreciate the faith that you have in the message that I'm going to give, and hopefully it can be used to propel you on your path to something really, really cool. So again, I just want to say thank you, and I do not take the responsibility lightly. And again, I hope that I can provide some things that you can use in your future and make you better, not just in what you want to do in your career, but better all the way around as a human being and a person. So thank you very much. And I guess having said that, I'm going to flip over here. And okay, so a little bit about me. And please do not take this the wrong way. I take almost no credit for anything. I am a product of the greatest coaches in the world. I thank Jesus, God Almighty, for connecting the dots of my life and doing things and opening up doors that I never, ever could have imagined doing myself. Getting to the Olympic Training Center was a matter of getting a right coach. I think that there's people out there that are just as good, just as strong, just as capable, but don't have some of those opportunities. So when I give you my background, please do not think I'm bragging. I truly don't think I'm any more special than anybody else. I'm just a product of what can happen when you get around the right people. And I think that's a very important message to send. But I do tell you these things because I do want to establish some credibility, right? So that you can have some faith in what I'm going to tell you and regarding the coaches that I've been around. So I am, very blessed to have been a world champion powerlifter and a world record holder. And I was an Olympic weightlifter. I never went to the Olympics though. I was on the national team, but I actually left that and switched over to powerlifting because they are two different sports. So I left, and people ask me all the time, did you know what you were doing? And yes, I knew exactly what I was doing. I did so for a reason, but that's time for a different speech. But I was blessed again to have won the world championships, and I'm one of the only people, again, thank God, to have been an international medalist in both Olympic weightlifting and to have been a world champion in powerlifting. I also hold world records in a number of strange things, like, I know this is going to sound pretty bizarre, but I hold the Guinness Book of World Records for tearing license plates in a minute. So I tore 23 license plates in 1 minute. So I know, it is funny, because you're probably thinking, why? Yeah, I guess because it was something to do, and you have to get permission to get the license plates. But I do it. I will tear one for you now if you would like. I certainly don't have to, but if you wanted me to, I would do it. Okay, I always bring something with me because when people find out, I know I set you up, didn't I? When people find out that I do these things, like, and you didn't bring one, and then it starts like a mutiny and things go downhill, so I bring something with me. I carry a bag, and I have like steel spikes in there because I can bend metal and all kinds of things too. But you can see it's like a real, this is a real, like, legitimate license plate. All I need you to do is just, tear my rings off. All I want you to do is, if you can give me a count of 3, and by the way, do you mind if I bleed a little? No, I won't bleed this time, but they're like razors. I mean, when you cut them, they're really sharp. So just quick backstory. I know it's 20 minutes, so I got to get going, but I had to do this at the county office building. And I put towels all over the office, and they're like, why? And I'm like, could you wait, just check this action out. And then it was all good. There's no stitches or anything. All right, what I need you to do, though, is give me a count of 3, okay? 1, and don't count backward, because I just can't keep up with that, all right? So 1, 2, you guys go ahead.
1, 2, 3.
I wasn't ready. I'm just kidding. Okay, this time I'll meet it, but I have to get my face. I might make some faces, too. Okay, you ready?
1, 2, 3.
No blood either. No blood. Anyway, thanks for humoring me. So I do want to talk a little bit about excuses, believe it or not. So my presentation tonight is there's a little blood, but not too bad. It's okay. You wouldn't believe, if I rolled up my sleeve, you wouldn't believe I've had the scars from these things too. I'm not going to. You'll be like, oh my God, look away. So I won't do that. But anyhow, excuses do ruin performance. And I mean that very genuinely. And I've got, I think, a pretty good story to illustrate that I hope bring that back home. But excuses, if you're not careful, excuses are very subtle. And they have a way of like filtering into your life. And if you're not cautious, they will become habitual. And I think that that's what you were mentioning a few minutes ago. When they become habitual, then you have a chronic problem. And I've seen firsthand people that could have been very, very good at a number of things, but they couldn't even get out of bed in the morning because they made their excuses more important than their mission. And that's very, very dangerous. Besides that, you're just sabotaging your success. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we go on. So what I want for you tonight is my coaches always used to send me to workshops, lifting seminars and things like that. And they always told me, Bill, if you get one idea, then you call that a successful night. Well, I'm going to hope you get 2 or 3. If you can walk out of here with 2 or 3 things that will better your lives, then I'm going to consider myself leaving tonight better too. And that's all I want, is just for you to leave better than you came in. And if nothing else, you've got a good story to tell people. Oh, thanks. Thank you. See, I get so obsessive, and now I'm like going over to the papers. There's something about it. Anyway, a few definitions for you. So I think you'll agree with me that performance, right? Performance is like this big umbrella. And performance is the sum total of all your behaviors and actions and thoughts that relate to a specific event. Can we agree on that? I mean, if nothing else, it sounds pretty good, right? I made that up. Actually, I did. It's pretty, but I think that's a pretty good working definition of performance, because a performance encompasses all these things that lead in to what you're trying to do. Thank you. And then we have excuses. Now, I thought about this a lot. When I was asked to give the speech, and again, I'm very honored to be here, I thought, can I talk about speeches? And then it hit me right away. I got a good story about them. But then I had to come through with a few more things, and I arrived at this. And I went and I called up my coach on the phone. I said, hey, can you get in touch with one of the psychologists from the Olympic Training Center and just see if they're okay with this? And we agreed that excuses, the psychological, mental, and emotional, because your mental toughness and emotional toughness they're very related, but they're 2 different things. But a psychological, mental, and emotional attempt to preserve one's self-image. In other words, you're worried more. When you make an excuse, you are looking externally. When you make an excuse, you are looking outside of yourself instead of looking inward. That's basically what you're trying to do, is fool people into thinking, and by the way, you're probably not fooling anybody, but you're trying to fool people into thinking it wasn't me that screwed up, it's someone else. Now, how many people here have ever made an excuse for something? Yeah, okay, I can raise 2 hands, okay, because it's happened to all of us, right? It happens. And the key is, oftentimes, I believe that excuses are subconscious. You don't even recognize it because you're so concerned with trying to preserve your own self-image. You're kind of in survival mode oftentimes when you make them. So you have to train your subconscious mind to get away from that, and we're going to touch on that a little bit too. Okay? My assertion is where you start in life is not where you finish. And that goes for everybody. I mean, you're not done until God says you're done, so you've got plenty of things to do. Even if you get to be 80 years old and you're still around, then keep moving forward. You've got things to do. But what I am going to tell you is excuses can delay where you're heading, and they might even stop where you're supposed to be. So excuses are damaging. And I think one of the big problems with excuses is that we hear them so often. It's kind of like you get a stimulus over and over and over, and what happens to the stimulus? It wears off. You hear excuses over and over and over, and it wears off because you just keep hearing it. So people have this tendency to think that excuses are no big deal. I'm telling you they are. Let's go ahead. So I'm going to give you something that maybe you've never heard of before, because when people talk about excuses, they refer to the mentality, right? The psychological component. I'm actually going to give you something, the physiological component, how your body responds to excuses. And I think this will explain why people use them so often. So the perceived, right, because it's a perception. You might screw something up, and I might not even think you failed. But what's important is what you think about the event. If you think you failed, then you did. If you don't think you failed, then you didn't. It's up to you to perceive it. But perception is, and this, I don't know if you know this, I'm at BU and you guys are a lot smarter than I am, but I was taught at the Olympic Training Center that we really don't see with our eyes, we actually see with our brains, right? The eyes open up and bring the image in, with a light in, but the brain has to make sense of it. And that means that everything we see is really a matter of perception. And the nice thing about that is perceptions can be changed. You have the ability to control your perception of life. No, I'm sorry, can you go back? But either way, the perceived event, otherwise you wouldn't make an excuse. Nobody makes an excuse when they win, or when they get an A. They make an excuse when it doesn't go well. So the perceived negative event yields an excuse, which is a transfer of blame. I'm going to get to that in a little bit, which yields a chemical release in the form of dopamine. Now, if the excuses stopped right there, I would love the excuse. I would encourage everybody to use them, because it would make you feel better. The problem with it is because you get a positive emotional state from the excuse, you are actually changing your behavior. Why wouldn't you? You get a positive feeling from it, so why wouldn't you change your behavior? In fact, most people do. And what happens is, if you go back, you don't have to, but if we go back to our initial, which you agreed to, by the way, remember when we talked about performance? Performance is made up of your behaviors. So if you use excuses all the time, and you're changing your behavior, you therefore must, by default, be changing your performance. And that's the real problem with an excuse. It will change through a perception where you are heading in life. So I'm going to encourage you not to use them. Please. Now, at the Olympic Training Center, there really wasn't much on the wall. Okay? I know you'd expect like all these motivational statements to be all over the place. And again, I was at the Olympic Training Center a number of times. And I noticed that I expected to be all these things all over, and there wasn't. There was really two posters that I remember. One was that, and I found it online, and it wasn't hard, so I just brought it in the PowerPoint. And the other one was something about like reaching, grabbing, and attaining, and something like that. It was something positive, but it was very open-ended. But you think about all the things they could put on the wall at the Olympic Training Center. All the things, for all those athletes to see. All those athletes to see. By the way, you only get to the Olympic Training Center if you are an elite level athlete. And they said, you are going to the Pan Ams or you are going to the Olympics next, so we're going to fly you out and this is where you're going to stay. All the things they could put on the wall, and they picked that, that tells you something about how they prioritized it. They put excuses up at the very top of their list. So when I was asked to do this, that's what came into my mind. But I got this now. Please. So I got a story. Okay, that's me when I had hair. And I'm 18 years old. I'm 18 years old, and I'm in Venezuela. And it was at the Pan Am, I was at the Pan Am Games, and I walked up, and my coaches, they train me very well, right? So you walk up, they give you a code word, you stare out, and you visualize what you're going to do, and it becomes so neurologically ingrained that you can start to think something and your body responds. I mean, like visibly responds. So I go up, I stare, I visualize, I see in my mind, I make the lift. Now this is 400 pounds, okay? Actually, this may have been just a touch over. So I go down to get the bar, and I pull the weight, and I realized right away, as soon as the bar came off the floor, I knew something was wrong. Well, what was wrong is the loaders, and I don't believe they did it intentionally, but they put 5 extra pounds on one side. Now, when you're trying to put 400 pounds over your head, and you've got 5 pounds more on one side, it's kind of hard, you know, so the bar didn't go very far. It came on my shoulders and it fell over. And I knew right away that the loaders had screwed up. But in Olympic weightlifting and in powerlifting, once you take that attempt and you give it an effort, you're done. If I had made that lift, I would have won the gold medal. And because I missed that lift, I had to settle for something else. As I walk off the platform, I kind of gave the head judge a look like, you know, why? And the head judge came right up to me. He knew what happened, and it wasn't his fault. The judges aren't the loaders. He walked up, he said something to me in Spanish, which I didn't understand, but I could feel the love. I knew he felt. No, I knew right away. He was like, I am so sorry. I knew what he was trying to get. The guy gave me a hug. I'm like, it's good, it's good. I walk off. You know what my coach said to me? I'll never forget it. He goes, man, we blew it. And I didn't say this. I wouldn't speak to my coaches like that. But I'm thinking, we blew it? I didn't put the weight on the bar. As we walked back, he, you know, kind of gave me that, like, that reassurance. We got back in there and he goes, Bill, you're the general of that platform. You are the general of the platform. When you get up there, your job is to go inspect everything, including the weight. Everything. He goes, did you inspect everything? I said, no. He goes, it's our fault. He goes, it's my fault too, because I was back helping somebody else, and I should have been up there with you. That was a huge moment. We blew it. Now, notice how he didn't make any excuses? We blew it. He didn't go out and point the finger at somebody else, because clearly we didn't screw up the bar, but we missed our job. We did not do our job. Now, I know everybody looks so sad. Oh, Bill, I'm sorry. No, 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 no. See, this is the power of not making excuses. See, I want to be positive. You make excuses and you blame someone else, that means you're perfect. Think about it. If you blame someone else, you're perfect, therefore you have nothing to change. How the hell are you going to get any better? My coach never even did that, never even hesitated with that. We blew it, walked back. Can you go to the next slide? Now, years later, I'm at the World Championships, okay? Years later, I'm at the World Championships. And I had had a really good friendly rivalry with a number of athletes from other countries. One of them was my best friend and worst enemy from Russia. And we would break world records in transfer, and it came down to the very last lift of the meet. He goes up for his third and final attempt, and he sets the world record, and he moves ahead of me. So now my coach comes back, and he goes, Bill, you make this lift, you're the world champion, but you're going to need to set a world record. I said, I got you. He goes, you got it. I said, I'm telling you, coach, we're good. So I walk out this tunnel, I walk out on the platform, and I walk over, and I know what you're thinking, right? They screwed up and they go to the bar. No, they did everything they were supposed to do, except it was baby powder. Lifters will use baby powder to move the bar quicker. Anybody know how slippery baby powder is? If you put your foot in that with 740 pounds on that bar, you're going to die. So I walk up and I saw just a little bit of it. Yes, I made the lift. Okay, so I became the world champion, thank God. But what's important is I would not have found, I'm convinced, I would never have seen that baby powder if it hadn't been 12 years earlier at the Pan Am Games. It never would have happened. If I had looked at that bar guy and said, that's your fault, you screwed me over, and therefore I have nothing to change, I would not have caught that. Are you feeling what I'm saying here? That's why making excuses can kill you. It can take away what's supposed to be yours. If you make them, you are giving up control to someone else. If you don't make them and you always ask, what can I do better? Then you are always moving forward. And it might take years to get there, but you are always heading in the right direction. Thank you. So, we got that. I got that. All right, so as I'm flying back home from Las Vegas, I come up with these. My coach has always told me, write everything down, Bill. Write everything down. I feel like I'm favoring this side, so I'm going to come over here. I'm not going to yell at two people now. So my coach has told me, oh, I'm sorry, I made you switch the camera, so I should go back there. What if I moonwalked? Is that pretty good? Actually, that was pretty bad, wasn't it? No thanks. Anyway, as I'm flying back home, I come up with some rules, right? And I thought, number one, if you handle second place well, you won't be there for long. What I meant, and I really didn't know this at the time, but I was referring to excuses without even really knowing it. If you handle second place well, you will not be there for long. But if you don't handle it well, and you keep blaming everybody else, you're going to be stuck. Because there's no reason to improve, and that's what excuses do. Number two, excuses rob you of the opportunity to improve. I think we all get that one. Please, thank you. Okay, rule number three, perfection is a lie. Other than God, it does not exist. It does not exist. And if you get stuck into this mindset that you are trying to do something perfect, then you're going to psych yourself out. And what happens, what I've seen is that people, when they're trying to be perfect, actually stop trying. Because what they're afraid of, if they're trying to reach perfection, and you obviously know you can't, then there's no reason to try. So you need to move past that too. I know it really doesn't have much to do with excuses, other than you don't need to blame someone else when you screw up, because it's expected that you're going to. It's okay to make a mistake. That's how you get better. Number four, stay hungry to improve. I don't care if you're first, 21st, or 31st. You need to stop and always assess, what can I do better? When you get an A on a paper, you need to go back to your room and you need to look over things and say, what can I do better? That's how you keep moving forward. And if you got a D, that's okay. I've had D's before too. Okay? It's okay. Change. Find what you can improve on. Go talk to your professors. See what you can do differently. Thank you. Okay, excuses. When you make an excuse, and I know I don't mean to sound angry here, But when you make an excuse, you are putting on display your weakness for everyone to see. You're not fooling anybody. People already get it, they already know, and most people are very accepting of your failures. You know, my coaches they never yelled at me, never once. They knew my heart was in the right place, and they knew I would go to war to get the job done. They never yelled at me once. Just keep giving your very, very best. Okay? And everything you do starts with a thought. Everything you do starts with a thought. You have to see yourself as somebody important and doing something important before you can ever actually become that person. Just to give you a very quick overview here. At the Olympic Training Center, we visualized over and over and over winning gold medals, over and over and over. And when I moved over to powerlifting, I was interviewed in a magazine. They said, "What did it feel like?" I said, "Not really anything special." And that's the truth. I really didn't feel like I mean, you're world champion, right? Nice ring, which I wear so that you don't stare at my baldness. But anyway, you know, that was the honest truth. And you know why it was nothing special to me? Because I had already seen it in my mind over and over and over and over again. The stimulus had kind of worn off. Everything you do starts with a thought. Control your mind and make your thoughts good. Find the right things to think about. Thank you. Okay, focus on effort, not the outcome. That's a cardinal rule. If you're doing the right things for the right reasons, you're going to be fine. Thank you. I'm sorry, well, you are not a victim either. Excuses take on this victim mentality. That's what you're doing, right? It's not my fault, it's yours. No, it is your fault, at least in part. Now, I didn't go screw up the bar, I didn't do that, but I didn't do my job either. Sometimes there's more than one fault. Sometimes there's more than one finger blame. But you got to always look at you, because you can't control anyone else. I can't control that loader. If I could go do it again, I would. But I'll tell you, if somebody had to give me a choice, Bill, would you win the Pan Am? Would you take the Pan Ams or the Worlds? Yeah, well, the Pan Ams are here, the Worlds are here. I'm taking the Worlds. And if somebody said, well, yeah, you're going to have to take the silver there to get the gold here, would you do it? Absolutely. But that's because I had great coaching. That's not credit for me. I was going to make the excuse. I was all ready to go back there and say it's their fault. My coach took me right away and said, we blew it. He knew what I was thinking. He took care of that before I even got started. Thank you. So, here's my advice to you. And again, before I wrap this up, I just want to say thank you very much for being so attentive to. Always ask, what can I do better? I don't care, again, whether you're first or second. Always ask what I can do better. Number 2, define your mission. You have to know where you're going if you're going to get there. And excuses play no part in where you're headed. But you've got to define what you want to be and how you're going to do it. Letter C, success is 50-50. What I mean by that is, I see people routinely, they'll call me up and they'll say, or they'll email me and they'll ask me a question. Bill, so I've got this thing coming up, and I've been doing this and this and this, but this is happening. My first thought is, what are you doing at night? That's my first question. What are you doing at night? What are you doing on the weekends? And you know what it is most of the time? I'm going out. And not that there's anything wrong with going out. Don't take that the wrong way either. I get it. But if you're trying to become a world champion, there's somebody else out there that's not going out. They're staying home. Now, believe me, there will be a time. My coaches always gave me a couple weeks at a time to say, you know what, Bill, go relax, unwind, get away from it, go out, have some fun, when it's appropriate to do so. But if you're not aware of your lifestyle, and your lifestyle does not match where you want to be, you're not going to get there. So you have to know what you need to do, and you also need to know what you shouldn't be doing to become your very best. Resiliency in the finished product. When you see people on TV, actors, actresses, pardon me, athletes, in large part what you're seeing is a finished product. You don't see the hours of brutal training and practice that it takes to get where they're getting. Resiliency. Keep bouncing back. When you get setbacks, don't let them deter you. Let's see. Keep your promises to yourself. Get up in the morning. How many people here set an alarm to get up? How many people hit the snooze button? Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, knock that off. Sorry to be so direct, but here's why I'm going to tell you that. When you hit the snooze button, you are breaking a promise to yourself. Look, if you mean to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, then get up at 6 in the morning. If you say 6 o'clock and you get up at 6:30, you broke your promise to yourself. And what you're teaching yourself is that your excuses are more important than your mission. Do not hit the snooze. If you need to sleep till 6:30, then set the alarm for 6:30. But when that alarm goes off and you've promised yourself, then get up. one little asterisk, unless you say, okay, I'm gonna set the alarm for 6 o'clock, but then I'm gonna hit the snooze button twice. Then fair enough. But whatever promise you, everybody's got a loophole, right? But whatever promise you make to yourself, stick to it. Look, you need to be accountable, and I'm saying this out of love, and I really want what's best. I know I don't know many of you personally, and as a matter of fact, I don't hardly know anybody here personally. Not that I wouldn't want to, but you get it. But it's all good, yeah. But I do care, and I want you to do well with your lives. When you make a promise to yourself, fulfill it. And the last thing is, pursue your goals with the faith that it's already been done. That it's just a matter of going through the steps. Because your life is going to travel in the direction of your thoughts. You think well, you're going to come through. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here.